Hey, New York City, don't miss your favorite E Street drummer, Max Weinberg, bringing his live show to Huntington, Long Island. One night only, Saturday, October 26th at the Paramount. Tickets for Max Weinberg's Jukebox on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. More info at ParamountNY.com.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
The great congressman from the great state of Florida, Brian Mast, veteran also. And Congressman, we have so much we want to talk with you about. I first want to get to Afghanistan. You had a big hearing today, and Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was subpoenaed. He was a no-show. Explain why you wanted to hear from him, and obviously so many questions about the terrible withdrawal from Afghanistan by this administration.
So the precursor to us asking for Secretary of State Anthony Blinken to come in and testify before us today was a report issued by the House Foreign Affairs Committee that outlined everything that went on with the Afghanistan withdrawal. It was a bipartisan report. We did dozens and dozens of transcribed interviews from people working for the Secretary of State, people that were intimately involved in that failed withdrawal from Afghanistan. And we said, hey, now that the report's out, it's time for you to come answer to what everybody said about you, the State Department, the military, anything that happened there. And basically, he used the same MO that he has been using since the whole time that he's been the Secretary of State, which is he decided he wasn't going to show up for the hearing, which, by the way, and this was the point that I made there, that's the exact same thing that he did during the Afghanistan withdrawal. He was not present. To put a fine point on this, he was literally vacationing in the Hamptons during some of the most critical times of the Afghanistan withdrawal of what was the largest operation for the United States Department of State probably in history. And he was vacationing in the Hamptons.
And, you know, Congressman, today we finally heard from President Joe Biden, who addressed the UN. And he brought up Afghanistan. I actually was surprised because he never talks about it. And he brought up the 13 soldiers, and he never talks about them. The family members, there's a number of family members. Steve Nakui, who lost his son at Abbey Gate, came out and said, how dare you? Like, he felt it was totally political because he's never reached out to them. They don't feel like he's done anything. Your thoughts about sort of now him trying to somehow, and he defended his withdrawal, saying it was the right move, doing it on a swan song. Your thoughts?
You know, I know Steve Nakui well, and I'm sorry for everything that he and his family and the other families that lost, those 13 that lost their service members at the Abbey Gate bombing, because they don't get to have closure because you have an administration that to this moment will say nothing went wrong. Everything that happened, that's the only way that it could have happened. It couldn't have happened without an Abbey Gate bombing. No, we shouldn't have considered doing it in the winter months when there's basically no fighting that goes on in Afghanistan, instead of in the summer months when there's extreme heavy fighting. No, we shouldn't have considered doing it out of these much more easily defendable air bases that the United States military had operated out of for years. Let's do it out of this HKI airport. And by the way, let's use the terrorists we've been fighting for 20 years, the Taliban. Let's use them for our rear security. But, you know, those things happen, but nothing could have changed, could have gone better. We couldn't have avoided any of this. And as long as that's the tenor of the administration, those families, they don't get to have peace because everybody knows that's not the truth.
Yeah, and I want to tell everybody, I know folks know who you are, Congressman, but you were over in Afghanistan and an IED took both of your legs. You are a true American hero. So we're so honored to have you here. You understand what you're talking about. And the fact that this president and also the vice president have really tried to just poo-poo Afghanistan and blame Trump for it. What do you make when you hear that?
It's them just doing what they always do, admit nothing, deny everything, make counter accusations. But the truth about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and as it relates to service members like myself and those heroes that were killed, is this. There was some Democrat members of the House today that tried to say, it was all for nothing, right? It was all for nothing. Everything that went on in Afghanistan was all for nothing. And I would just say to my fellow veterans, that's not true. It wasn't all for nothing. You were serving your brothers and your sisters to your left and right in combat. You were serving causes that you believe to be bigger and more important than yourselves as individuals. You prevented the kind of terrorist attacks that we were seeing abroad from taking place on U.S. soil. Those things were not all for nothing. Our service was absolutely squandered by the way the administration left Afghanistan, by the way the Biden and Harris administration left Afghanistan. That was a squandering of our service that had gone on there for 20 years. But here's the most important thing that I could say about that. And this goes back to Antony Blinken not being present for the withdrawal, them not paying attention to everything surrounding that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. They treated our soldiers as though they were disposable. When you have the Secretary of State on vacation in the Hamptons, but not making any decisions about whether he's going to have to get his State Department employees out of Afghanistan, and instead it becomes an emergency evacuation, guess what? All those soldiers that have to conduct that emergency evacuation, you're treating them like they're disposable. If he's not paying attention to the fact that there's going to be people hanging off the wings of aircraft trying to get out of there, you're treating those airmen, the people in the Air Force, as disposable that were operating those aircraft. You're treating the Marines as disposable, the ones that have to guard that border around that HKIA airport to try to keep the Taliban from getting in, even though you're using them as security as well. You're treating those Marines as disposable. And that's the way that they treat our service members right to this day, by having a person wearing the title Commander-in-Chief, Joe Biden, who every one of us knows cannot make a decision that is sound for any member of the military. You treat them as though they're disposable.
Well, today at the UN, where Biden spoke, and Congressman Brian Mast, I couldn't believe this. He mentioned climate change 6 times and mentions Iran twice, like a sidebar. What does that say to you? My goodness.
Iran is not their priority, has not been their priority, and if they could have their way, they would be immediately back in the Iran nuclear deal, in bed with Iran, not paying attention to the groups that Iran is funding around the globe, whether it be Hamas, whether it be Hezbollah, whether it be the Houthis that are bombing vessels that are trying to deliver goods to and from America, or anybody else. All those groups that Iran is supporting, they would can turn even more of a blind eye to those groups if they could right now. They were not happy with the attacks that went on against Hezbollah, that went off in everybody's pocket in terms of a pager or a walkie-talkie or any other device. They didn't take pride and smile about those things. They saw these as political. I would say, let's say they saw them as political problems for them that they were going to have to somehow speak about the success of Israeli operations. And again, that's been their MO from the very beginning.
What did you make of Kamala Harris in the debate? Because everyone's now saying, obviously, this was wrong, and they forgot to fact check her on this, too, where she said there's not a member of the U.S. military who's on active duty, combat, or a war zone. Tell that to the guys in the Red Sea, right? I mean, and they're just sending more troops there now. We've got 40,000 already troops there.
I wrote a letter to Kamala Harris last week following the debate, and it said very specifically, listen, following your performance at the debate, which was nothing more than a performance. It was not on an authentic display of who she is. It was her being a thespian, an actor, somebody that's just, portraying something for the American people. I said, it appears you do not know where our service members are in danger abroad, what war zones they are in. And so I'd like for you to come to the House and give us a brief outlining where everybody is on each continent, so that we know you, as second in line to the Commander-in-Chief, a person asking to be Commander-in-Chief, that you actually know where these individuals are. But I would say this about her performance as well. The American media, they get to gaslight the American people about what Kamala Harris is and what Joe Biden are. They gaslight the American people, not talking about the fact that Joe Biden is not cognitively capable to run the United States of America. But foreign intelligence agencies don't get to gaslight their leaders. They look at Kamala Harris, they look at Joe Biden, they tell Xi Jinping or Putin or whoever their leaders are exactly what's going on with U.S. leaders or potential U.S. leaders. When they talk about Donald Trump, they warn their leaders that his yes is yes and his no is no. And if he says don't do something, they are rolling the dice if they don't listen to Donald J. Trump. When they talk about Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, they have to sit there and talk about, well, one of them has no idea, what he's doing at all. And the other one's just pretending to know what she's talking about, but won't actually give any points on any policy because we suspect she has no idea what's going on either.
And boy, is the world a messy place. Craig Eaton.
I suspect that no one in the administration knows what they're doing. I mean, look, the world is burning down. There's wars all around the world, and we're talking about climate change. What the heck are they thinking?
It's because it's the only place they have any kind of red line is for them, they'll have climate change red lines, but for Iran, no red line. For the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, no red lines for them. For people coming across the U.S. southern border, no red lines there. But when it comes to climate change, listen, don't you dare put a gas stove inside of your house.
That is so important. That is so important.
It may be a problem 300 to 500 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. It's incredible.
If there's a world left, John, if we have a world left 300 years from now.
Yeah, your point's a good one. The world's on fire. We're dealing, and look at what's going on with Israel now, with going after Hezbollah. I mean, there's so much going on, and he's slamming his fist about climate change. It is shocking.
Yeah, we had a saying in the military, make the big deal the big deal. And they have every inability to do that. They do not focus on national security objectives for the United States of America. They focus on what for them are political security objectives. And if it doesn't rise to the level of a political emergency for Harris or Biden or Walz or any of them, then they don't pay attention to the issue.
Well, thank you, Congressman. We're so honored to have you here on the show. We love you, and we really appreciate you, and we thank you so much for your service.
Hey, thanks for talking with me tonight.
Thank you so much. Congressman Brian Mast from the great state of Florida there. Thank you.